Hi, I'm Grant Abbott and I'm Principal of SMSF Strategies, and we're here on the beautiful Gold Coast overlooking the amazing Nerang River, and have a look at some of the boats going behind me. I'm sure every one of the people who own those boats has a family super fund or a self-managed super fund. Today we're going to be talking about tax inside a self-managed super fund, and being a tax lawyer at trade and have done it more than for 25 years now, this is probably the most exciting area that we have to deal with inside our self-managed super funds. Enough said, most of you are probably aware that once you turn age 60, that when your benefits, a lump sum or income stream comes out of a fund, it comes out tax-free. That's quite interesting when we're now starting to see people from the UK, US, Malaysia and all of around the world now coming to Australia to take advantage of this. Can you believe Australia's retiree tax haven status? How would the Commissioner go about that one when he'd have to go up and front all these tax boards overseas and say, well, sorry, yeah, Australia is a tax haven. I couldn't imagine the Commissioner would like that very much. But we're well and truly now a destination of choice for retirees around the world because of our tax haven status. Now, having tax outside of the fund, that's one issue, and you can go and have a look on our website to see a couple of other strategic videos I've done in terms of the tax benefits and what to do around some of the strategies, particularly in respect of family super funds. But what we're looking at today is tax inside the fund. Just because you're not paying tax outside doesn't mean you don't really focus in on tax inside the fund. There's two aspects of a fund, and one is the accumulation stage and another one the pension stage. What I want to do now is just focus on the accumulation stage. In terms of the accumulation stage, effectively we set an investment strategy for the funds. We're accumulating wealth in there. We might be accumulating wealth during up until retirement, and even we're now starting to see retirement accumulation accounts, people leaving their money in the lump sum side or accumulation side of the fund. Tax-wise, that fund is on income, where we've got the accumulation side of the fund. On the income coming through, it's taxed at 15%. So that include rent, dividends, interest, any other income flowing through to that side, it's taxed at 15%. If we realise the capital gains on that side in respect to the realisation or disposal of an asset, then effectively what we do is we get a 33.33% discount, which means effectively most of us rule it off and say, well, there's 10% capital gains tax on assets realised inside the accumulation side of the fund. Where a contribution is made by an employer, or we make a personal tax deductible contribution into the fund, effectively when that goes into the fund, it forms part of the fund's assessable income. In the past, there's been this concept called contributions tax. There's never really been any contributions tax. What happens is when monies go into the fund, effectively becomes assessable, and then if it's on the accumulation side, obviously if it's assessable, it's taxed at 15%. Retail industry-based funds generally take the 15% up front, but we in the self-managed super fund industry really work hard to try and reduce the tax impact on those deductible contributions. And of course, there's a number of deductions that can be offset against any assessable income in the accumulation side. Deductions include life insurance premiums, premiums to pay for salary continuance, total and permanent disability and life insurance are all deductible inside the superannuation fund and can be offset against the assessable income to end up with a taxable income, which is then taxed at 15%. We've also got other deductions. For example, if a benefit is paid out by way of TPD, or what we call permanent disability, or salary continuance or temporary incapacity, either one of those, if the trustee of the fund pays out benefits, generally they get a tax deduction if the person's under age 65. So a proportion of any payment going out, they get a tax deduction for. Likewise, if someone dies in the fund and a benefit is paid out to the dependents or the legal estate of the deceased member, the fund gets a tax deduction for that benefit payment. A simple example will suffice. We've got a client we've got a member of the fund who's 45, would normally work until age 65, started work at 25, so they've got a 40-year service period. If they die and then $2 million or $1 million is paid out on their behalf to their estate, effectively the fund will get a tax deduction. If it's $1 million going out, they get a 50% tax deduction, being the 50 or 10-year or 20-year future service element of that payment. So the fund will get a tax deduction of $500,000, which can then be carried forward into the future. Obviously other deductions we now have talked about in the previous, and have again look on the website, are borrowing. Where a super fund borrows, obviously if it's investing in property, they'll be generating interest deductions, generating depreciation, also capital allowances. They're all able to be offset against any assessable income coming from that particular fund. So that's the accumulation side. Now the pension side is a completely different ball game altogether. Where assets have been segregated, and that's a simple bookkeeping exercise, where assets are segregated in order to fund the pension liabilities of the fund. So, for example, an account-based pension is being paid out of the fund, and we've set aside $1 million to look after that account-based pension, then any income or capital gains generated on that $1 million which has been set aside effectively is tax-free. Here's a bit of a strategic point. If you've got a fund that's negatively gearing into property, best place to keep it is on the accumulation side. Once the debt's paid off, put it over to the pension side where that income coming through is very tax effective. Another thing that we've got to look at is particularly it's useful investing in shares and managed funds that are paying imputation credits inside these funds. If you think about it, if you get a franked dividend being paid out, paid to the superannuation fund, and it's got a franking credit of 30%. If it's on the accumulation side, 15% has to be taken up by way of paying tax on that dividend in the accumulation side with a 15% credit, which can then be used to offset contributions tax or other taxes inside the fund. Whereas on the pension side, the beauty about that is if the fund is receiving these imputation credits at 30%, because it doesn't pay any tax on the income or the imputation credits, those imputation credits can be used to offset income in the totality of the fund, including the accumulation side where younger members may be in that fund. If there is excess credits, then the fund ends up with a tax refund. I know last year in my dad's superannuation fund, a family superannuation fund, he ended up with a cheque back of around about $15,000 inside the fund, notwithstanding the fact that he didn't pay any tax on any pension income. Anyway, that's tax in a nutshell. There's some great opportunities. Have a look more at the website to find out some more tax strategies, or certainly get in touch with your advisor, your accountant, your financial planner, or even the auditor to find out what's really required in terms of making these self-managed super funds or family super funds tax-free. Don't pay tax on the way out, but also don't try and pay tax on the way through. It's Grant Abbott signing off.